I'm doing live and local overnight radio. Now, I grew up listening to live and local overnight radio, and there have been some great live and local hosts on this station. And the first thing I wanted to do when I was given the opportunity by our tremendous, terrific owner, John Katsimatidis, to do this show, is profile everyone that has done this shift, because while sometimes it doesn't get very much respect, in my view, there's no better shift in radio. So I thought it might be fun to talk with a fellow Staten Islander, a gentleman who in the late 1990s was phenomenal hosting this particular day part. He is a gifted impressionist, a gifted talk show host, a comedic entertainer, the likes of which I've never heard on the radio, and someone who we're very, very lucky to have as part of the WABC Alumni Club. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit biased because this person is a Staten Islander, but even if he weren't, he's one of the funniest people that's ever been on the radio. I'm speaking, of course, about a name you will remember, and a name who, if you're a fan of overnight radio, nobody did it better in this town, the one and only Brian Whitman. Brian, thank you for staying up late with me this evening. It's great to talk with you.
It's great to talk to you, Frank, and I have to first say to you that things have changed since I did the all-night show. We used to just have people call in on the phone line. I mean, you sent me some app that you had me click on it. It was like communicating with the International Space Station. I mean, what's going on with that technology?
It's a work in progress, Brian, like so much of radio.
It's a work in progress up to 5 seconds before you go on the air. It's still working, and it's still in progress trying to work. So, you know.
All right. Well, we got you on the phone, Brian. So we're all good. Now, remind people, if they're new to overnight listening in these, in this area of the country, what your tenure was like as the host of this particular day part back in the late 1990s. When did you start? What show did you replace? And what were some of the highlights of your experience on the radio at the time?
Well, I grew up on Staten Island, and I was doing, I did a lot of voices on stations around the country, but I was in San Diego doing a morning show on a rock and roll music station. People who think I'm too liberal will be happy to know the call letters KGB. So, and that's actually true. But I was home visiting my mom and dad at Thanksgiving time, and I heard the late, great, my mentor, Alan Combs, filling in on WABC in the all-night show. And I know that Alan had another show, and I thought to myself, whoa, is there an opening at WABC? Now, I had never done a talk show. I had done music shows with talking in between. So I made contact, and whatever I sent, I guess, was okay, because Phil Boyce and John McConnell at the time, they called, they said, would you like to do, I came in and auditioned a couple of times, and I did probably really, really bad talk shows. I was 24 at the time, and John McConnell took me to some diner uptown, and he said, I want to give you the all-night show on WABC. I said, you're totally crazy. Why? No, I didn't say that. And I said, I accept. And they said, I was young, but I did a lot of voices, and I guess what some people thought was comedy, and they said, just address the news of the day on WABC, as we always do, but do it in your own way, however you think is most comfortable for you, or the most entertaining way, obviously, for people listening. So I couldn't believe it, because, like you, I grew up listening to 77 WABC, and I went on in March of 1997, and actually I'm a little knocked over by the intro, because I didn't do it very long. I was doing it, and then across the hall at the now defunct WPLJ, they asked me to fill in for Rocky Allen and do the afternoon drive show. So that was kind of a company thing. I went and did that. Who did I replace? I don't know exactly, but I know Darryl Wells, who's a great lady and a talented broadcaster, was on for a long time, because it took longer for me to get to New York from San Diego, just as a result of contractual things. But and then, of course, when I left is when Art Bell was put on by Phil Boyce, and I didn't come back to the all-night show, but I stayed for another 9 years on WABC in different capacities. So, but I had a great time doing it. I found that oh my goodness, I still can't believe that it was my first talk show, because I certainly wasn't. We had great ratings and people were happy to hear it. And I guess not everybody. There was always my dad. He wasn't a big fan. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, so I had a great time. It was what I wanted to do when I was 12 years old, and I couldn't believe it every night. So I'm so happy for you there doing it. And I'll tell folks, and then I'll be quiet, that I used to get letters, not emails, but this was the 1800s. No, it was 1997. I used to get letters from a young Frank Morano on Staten Island and talking about getting into radio. And I think you've said I'm the only radio guy who actually encouraged you to do it.
Well, that's right. I mean, most people, they did not even write me back. The few people that did write me back were not necessarily very encouraging. Everybody who wrote me back was very nice, but everyone said, yeah, you know what, that is not necessarily something that you should strive for. It's something that may or may not happen. You were the only person that I can recall that wrote back to me and said, broadcasting is a great career to aspire to, and you should definitely do it. And you actually had some incredibly insightful advice about concrete ways to pursue that. So I'm forever in your debt. And not only have I always been a fan of yours, but getting the opportunity to befriend you has been one of the bright spots of my choosing this as a career. But you know, Brian, you mentioned Art Bell. You know, these days we're competing with Coast to Coast, and the host these days is.
Well, you're not competing with Art. I can tell you.
Well,
that's not competing with Art.
That's right.
Because
right.
There's something. He doesn't come in anymore. I don't. God bless Art Bell. It was fantastic, a legend. But I definitely know. I don't know much about who's on at the opposite time, but I know you're not competing with Art. But I want to say something interesting. You finish your thought, and then I'll tell you about who I was competing with and a funny family thing.
Well, no, tell me. We got time. I have 4 hours to fill with my stream of consciousness.
Right. So I was doing all nights on WABC, and at the time, I don't know if he's still there. Is it Joe Bonino did the all-night show on WFAN? Did a sports talk show.
He does middays now. I think Steve Summers is on doing overnights.
Oh, okay. It's not Art Bell on WFAN, right?
No, it's not Art Bell. No. Although he could do
it. He could do it. I mean, from the kingdom of the great beyond. Look, my brother is a huge sports fan. He's about 3 years older than me, and he loves the Rangers, and he loves the Yankees, and I do too, but not like he does. He's a real sports guy. And my brother told me at some point, you know, several months into me doing all nights at WABC, and it's such a pleasure to be on with you in this slot. My brother said, "Oh yeah, well I listen to Joe," and I said, "Oh, it's sports talk." He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's cool." He said, "I call too." I said, "You call him?" He said, "Yeah, like I'm a regular caller and I listen every." I said, "Barry, I'm your brother. I grew up wanting to be on WABC and now I'm on, and you called Joe Bonino to talk about whether Pete Rose should get into the Hall of Fame or it was the strangest thing." But I thought, but that's a great lesson, because no one on the radio should assume or presume that everybody is just dying to hear what they have to say.
That's for sure. Hey,
even if it's your brother.
When we come back, I'm dying to hear what Brian has to say about the election we're in the midst of. But as we go to break, Brian was somebody that did what none of these other talk show hosts are able to do, and that was be able to attract significantly younger demos. How young? He was able to attract, as a listener, a 15-year-old.
In Indiana, you're on WABC. Good morning, Rebecca.
Hi. I'm calling about Disney.
Rebecca, you're 15, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you call the other morning?
Uh-huh.
How are things this morning in Indiana?
Cool. My little brother's here.
How old is your brother?
He's 11.
Put him on the phone.
Richardson.
I have to ask him a question.
You're loud.
Hi, Richard.
He won't talk.
Oh. All right, you're 15. Do you remember when you were 11?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you were 5 and 6?
Yeah.
If you went to Disneyland, did you really think that the Mickey Mouse walking around was really a mouse, or did you know it was really a person in a costume?
A person in a costume.
Yeah, there you go. See, you're a bright one, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Isn't it silly that this woman is suing Disneyland because her kids, I mean, one of her children were aged 5 to 11, and just your brother's age, 11 years old. Now, your brother knows that's not really a mouse, doesn't he?
Yeah, I hope.
Put him on the phone.
Richardson.
And turn your radio off. Hear the radio in the background? It's all right. I'll give them a hall pass. Richardson?
He won't talk.
Is his name Richardson?
Yeah, he won't talk. He's shy.
All right, Rebecca. Well, I'm glad you've called again. When do you have to go back to school?
The 13th.
Of September.
Yeah. August.
Whoa, what in the world?
Yeah.
August 13th?
Yeah.
What kind of public school or private school is that? Is it public? You go to public school?
Yeah.
They make you go back August 13th?
Yeah, we get out in May.
Oh, all right. See, I like getting out in June. When I went to school, we got out in June and went back in September. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, well, my little brother goes back. He's already started. He goes to all year-round school.
Ugh. So you have 2 more weeks to enjoy the show in the middle of the night. Then you're going to have to go to bed because you'll have school in the morning.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, you call me again before school starts.
Okay, I think you rock.
Thank you. I think I rock myself.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Rebecca.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. I'm all that in a bag of chips.
It's The Other Side of Midnight.
Brian, you are a Democrat, and you were on this station at a time when there were a lot of powerful conservative voices. The station that you're on now in Los Angeles, KRLA, you're a Democrat when there's, I think, only conservative voices. How did you find, and how do you find, a conservative-leaning audience embracing a Democrat? Is that a struggle?
No, it never has been a struggle for me, and I'm grateful to the willingness of the people who listen, because I don't identify myself on the radio. When I think of what I do on the radio or what I've done in my career, I don't think of myself as a Democrat. I don't think of myself as a liberal, which is actually really politically what I am. I got into radio and wanted to be on WABC in the slot you're on right now 23 years ago because I want still to entertain people. That's my goal when I get on the radio. I've always said, you've probably heard me say this a few times, I believe that the politics of the host is always secondary to the entertainment value of the show. I mean, you can have a very, very bona fide conservative person or a liberal person or whatever person who has important things to say and is very smart and has a message, but that message will never be heard if the host doesn't entertain the audience, because this is an entertainment medium. So that was always what I started doing on the radio, and I can't imagine ever moving away from that goal, because it to me I've never gone on the radio and told people for whom to vote. I mean, I'd rather go on and impersonate the people who are running or say something funny or relate to people, entertain them. So I'm a guy on the radio. I view myself as an entertainer or a broadcaster, and the fact that I'm a liberal guy, and I guess I'm pretty liberal. You tell me. The audience might remember. I'm one of the 6 white people on Staten Island who voted for David Bing.
Well, 4 years later, in your defense, you did wise up and vote for Rudy Giuliani, who people can hear.
No, that's not true. I endorsed him. I lived in White Plains, so I didn't have the agony. I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to vote for him. So, but I did endorse him.
How did you find, lifestyle-wise, handling these hours? How did you manage that?
It was hell. Okay, it's good to talk to you. No, Lindsey Graham. This is hell. Remember Lindsey Graham with the Kavanaugh? This is hell. No, here's the thing that I was so thrilled to be on WABC. I did wake up at about midnight, and you're starting to get in the vibe of that, and up all night. Many people are. In fact, my dad used to work the midnight shift at the Empire State Building. My mom and dad are in heaven. You know that. My dad did security all nights at the Empire State Building. He loved it. He loved the time slot. I loved it. I loved being on the radio with WABC listeners at this time. It's even more intimate than radio is outside of that. The ancillary, going to sleep when the sun's up is actually, I've gotten more used to that as I've gotten older. It's more neurotic, but then it was more of a challenge. But it's look, you would, I think you would, I know you would. And I know I would. I would take any inconvenience on the other side of the show to be on WABC in New York. So it was not a hard. It was hard, but when compared to but when understanding why I was doing it, it was of course something I just had to do. I was happy to do it because I love being on the radio, especially in the middle of the night. Especially some days, there's something very intimate about it. You're very close to the audience. In terms of the conversation, there's you don't have the not restrictions, but the expectations
Sure.
of being on afternoon or morning drive. I mean, you could talk about more stream of consciousness stuff. Not that I do that all the time, and not that you do that all the time. There's just more room, and it's a togetherness with the audience, usually for the duration of the show, because folks have the radio, they're in bed or whatever. I had more women call me from the Upper East Side and said, "I sleep with you every night." And I said, "Don't tell my mother that, because she's listening too." My mom used to listen as well. So.
We've been talking with Brian Whitman. You could find him on Twitter at Brian, Whitman. Brian, we only have about 30 seconds left, but I thought I'd take advantage of your talent one more time and ask you to end this half hour as if the great Bob Grant were ending his radio program.
Oh, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that just about slams you in on that interview with Brian Whitman. Who is that guy? I gotta get out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I truly do. I really gotta get out of here. Flim Flam doesn't want to reopen anything in New Jersey. On the Bob Grant Show, straight ahead.
Outstanding. Brian, thank you very much, my friend.